Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mardian Saroh. I'm from 2A class English department. For this time, I will explain 5 subtopics in communication skills. That is concept of communication, types of communication, basic principles of communication, the purpose of communication, and barriers of communication. I made this video to complete my mid-test in communication skills course with Ma'am Dini Aulia. First, it's about the concept of communication. In there, we must know what is the definition of communication. Communication is giving, receiving, or exchanging ideas, information, signals, or messages through appropriate media, enabling individuals or groups to persuade, to seek information, to give information, or to express emotion. This includes body language, skills of speaking, and writing. Before we communicate with others, we must think what we want to say. Working out the best way of saying it, finding the right words, making sure the other person understands about it. The second is types of communication. Number 1, types of communication based on the channels. That is number 1, verbal communication. Verbal communication is the message that we want to say is transmitted verbally. This communication is done by word of mouth and writing. In verbal communication, we should always remember the acronym KASS, that is, keep it short and simple. To deliver the right message, we should put ourselves in there. Would we or she or he understand about the message? Verbal communication is further divided into two: oral or spoken, and written communication. First, oral or spoken communication. In here, we use spoken words and includes face-to-face conversation, speaks, telephonic conversation, video, radio, television, and etc. For example, in oral communication is conversation in workplace, interviews, meeting, conferences, and etc. Second, written communication. In here, we use written signs or symbols. In written communication, message can be transmitted into via letter, report, memo, job description, employee manual, and electronic mail are the types of written communication used for internal communication. For communicating in external environment in writing, we use electronic mails, proposal, internet websites, telegrams, advertisement, brochures, and etc. In written communication is influenced by vocabulary and grammar. The types of communication based on the channels in number 2 is nonverbal communication. According to Mike Connell, nonverbal communication is behavior, not spoken or written communication, that creates or represents meaning. In other words, it includes facial expression, body movement, and gesture. Nonverbal communication is talking without speaking a word. As the saying goes, actions speak louder than words. Number 2, the types of communication is based on the purpose and the style. Based on the style and purpose, there are two main categories, that is formal communication and informal communication. Formal communication. In formal communication, there are certain rules, conventions, and principles are followed while communicating message. Formal communication occurs in the official and formal style, for example, at the office, at the campus, and etc. Informal communication. Informal communication is done using channels that are in contrast with formal communication channels. It happens among friends and family. In informal communication, we can use slang words, for language, and it's not restricted. The third is basic principles of communication. We spend almost all of the time to communicate with others. So, how we can do it? We can make sure that we communicate in the clearest and most effective way possible. According to 7C of communication, we must to be clear, concise, concrete, coherent, correct, courteous, and complete. Number 1 is clear or clarity. When writing or speaking to someone, be clear with our message. What is our purpose in communicating with this person? If we are not sure, then our audience will not be sure either. To be clear, try to minimize the number of ideas in each sentence. Make sure that it's easy for our reader to understand our meaning. People shouldn't have to read between the lines and make assumptions or on their own to understand what we are trying to say. Number 2 is concise. When we are concise in our communication, we stick to the point and keep it brief. To make it be concise, we can do: first, are there any adjective or filler words that we can delete? We can often eliminate words like, for example, you can see, definitely, kind of, literally, basically, or I mean. Second, repeated the point in different ways. Number 3 is concrete. When our message is concrete and our audience has a clear picture of what we are telling them, there are details but not too many. Our message is solid. Number 4 is correct. When our communication is correct, communication is also error-free communication. For example, the categories are correct are: do the technical term we use fit our audience's level of education or knowledge? Have we checked our writing for grammatical errors? Are all the names and the titles spelled correctly? And number 5 is coherent. When our communication is coherent, it's logical. All of our points are connected and relevant to the main topic, and our tone and flow of the text is consistent. Number 6 is complete. In a complete message, the audience will have everything they need to be informed and to take an action. We can make some questions to check that our communicate is complete. For example, does our message include in a call to action so that our audience clearly knows what we want them to do? Have we included all the relevant information like contact, names, dates, times, locations, and etc.? Number 7 is courteous. Courteous communication is friendly, open, and honest. There are no hidden insult or passive-aggressive tones. We keep our readers' viewpoint in mind and we are empathetic to their needs. The fourth is the purpose of communication. The purpose of communication is to get our message across to the others clearly and unambiguously. To avoid that, we must to understand what our messages are, what audience we are sending it, and how it will be perceived. The fifthly is barriers of communication. Communication barriers can arise at every stage of communication process. That is, from the sender, from the message, from the channels, from the receiver, from the feedback, and the context. Some barriers of communication are: number 1, physical barriers. Physical barriers are often due to of environment. For example, distractions, noise, and the poor lighting, and etc. Number 2 is system design. System design refers to problems with the structures in system in a place in an organization. Number 3 is semantic barriers. Semantic refers to meaning of language use. Poorly explained or misunderstood message can result in confusion. I think that's all. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.